Hey, I'm calling to order the May work session of the Port of Olympia. In this work session, we're going to be able to chew on some meaty topics together. There is no public hearing today, and therefore there won't be public comment, but there are a number of people who will come and address the commission. 4 commission members are present in the room. Commissioner Hansen will be joining us. He's in transit, and he should be joining us later in this meeting. With that, we have a busy agenda today, and in fact, it's been extended to be a meeting that lasts until 6:30 p.m. Do I have a motion to approve today's agenda? Motion to approve today's agenda as presented. Do I have a second?
Okay.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. The agenda is approved 4-0. We get to move to item number 1, economic benefits study, the Burke proposal. So I assume, Mike Reed, you'll be calling in our speakers to join us as panelists today. Okay.
Okay, with that, and if you, Missy, would mind pulling them up, they will be joining us virtually. But here's some context before we have them join, and I'll have them introduce themselves in just a moment. We have been doing what we call an economic impact or an economic benefit study for the last over 20 years. I know we did one in 2009, 2014, 2020, 2021 period, and it is time for us to do that exercise again. In previous years, we had been using a firm by the name of Martin and Associates. This year, we ultimately decided to issue a request for proposals to obtain a new consultant lead associated with this project. We had 7 responses, and we had a review committee that was made of some staff and some members from your citizen advisory committee that reviewed all of the proposals and ultimately recommended unanimously that we proceed with Burke. They are a firm out of the King County area. To initiate that work, before they actually got into doing the economic analysis, what we did was a small task order first to have them interview each of the commissioners. I did not want to launch them into the analysis without understanding what the commissioners' goals and objectives and needs, or even potentially concerns, would be with an economic benefit study. So they have interviewed all 5 of the commissioners. They attached to the cover memo was their summary of their findings from interviewing you all and trying to make some consensus understanding of where the commission is and what their needs and objectives are in an economic benefit study. So I have them here to talk to you today about their new so what they've done is they submitted in a proposal, then they interviewed you, and now they're modifying some of that proposal to be able to account for some of the goals and objectives that you have. They'll go over that proposal with us today. I would consider this an advisory. So when and if we ultimately decide to move forward with an action, I think that this should satisfy ultimately the advisory. So we would not do another advisory and then action. We would go to action should there be a consensus outcome today. So with that, I would like to introduce Burke. I'll have them introduce themselves, and they have a presentation that they'll go through that sort of guides who they are, what they do, and the various approaches that we will have with this study. So with that, Madalena, I'll hand it off to you, and you can introduce yourself and your team.
Thank you, Mike. Good afternoon, Port staff, and good afternoon, commissioners. It is great to see you all again. We are excited to join you this afternoon to present on the economic impact study, as Mike has mentioned. I want to start first by thanking each of the commissioners for your time over the past couple of months. The individual interviews that we conducted that Mike just mentioned were very valuable to help us understand your expectations for this economic impact study. So thank you again. Your feedback informed our approach, and we're here today to debrief you on this revised scope of work for this study. For those of you in person, my name is Madalena Killen. I am the project manager for this study with Burke. And I will be, Burke will be serving as your prime consultant. I have more than 10 years of experience conducting economic impact studies across Washington State. To provide a quick background on us, in addition to what Mike already mentioned, Burke is a Seattle-based interdisciplinary consultancy that integrates financial and economic analysis. We do strategy work, planning, as well as engagement and communications. Joining me today is Spencer Cohen, our sub-consulting partner, who's going to be our strategic advisors throughout this process. He brings a lot of experience in economic impact analysis and past experience working with ports. Spencer, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, briefly. Hi, everyone. Great to meet you, and thank you again for the opportunity to be here. As Natalie mentioned, I run an economics and research consulting firm and frequently work with Burke on projects, particularly around economic development. My firm is called High Peak Strategy. I've been operating for about 5.5 years and do a lot of work with ports, maritime, in Washington State, but also across the country as well, various port authorities. So great to meet you all.
Thank you. We've prepared a presentation today. It seems like I am not able to share my screen, Mike. I don't know if that's can be sorted out.
We'll adjust that.
So you want me to show it then?
Can you grant her the ability to share screen?
Can you do it now?
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Great. Well, it is just the two of us, Spencer and I, today presenting. Our broader team at Burke will be heavily involved behind the scenes. That includes Brian Murphy, who is our principal in charge. He will provide senior oversight throughout the project, and Oliver Hearn, he's our financial analyst. He'll be supporting the data gathering and technical analysis. As I mentioned, our team brings complementary economic impact expertise and specialized knowledge of ports, maritime, aviation, industrial lands, and other related industries like tourism. This slide illustrates some relevant experience and examples of our past work. Our team at Burke has recently completed a tourism impact assessment for Chelan County. This is a good example of a study that went beyond a traditional economic impact to consider a variety of impacts, not just economic and fiscal, but socioeconomic, environmental, and community impacts, both in terms of the benefits as well as the costs, and kind of provide those recommendations to enhance the positive impacts of tourism while mitigating the negative. Spencer has also done a lot of economic impact studies and port work. A few that I'll mention here. He's worked on economic impact studies of the maritime industry in Washington, including a 2022 statewide study for the Washington Maritime Federation, and also worked with the Port of Bellingham on an economic analysis of the maritime sector in Whatcom County. Our teams are also currently completing a Port of Bremerton economic impact study update, which is not featured on this slide as the report is not yet publicly available. So before diving into the specifics of the revised scope, I wanted to lay out the context a little bit, and Mike's already mentioned this on how we arrived here. So Burke and High Peak Strategy responded to an RFP for an economic impact study update for the Port of Olympia. We submitted a proposal, and we were selected to conduct the study and support you with this analysis. We began the work with a deliberate pre-scoping phase to make sure that our approach aligns with the expectations of both port staff and the commission. So as part of this pre-scoping phase, we conducted interviews, with each of the commissioners individually. We listened to your specific insights, your concerns, your priorities for this study, and then integrated that feedback into the revised scope of work that we are presenting today. So that brings us to our objective this afternoon. We are here to provide a clear walkthrough of this revised scope, address any questions that you may have about the elements that we've added, and then receive any additional feedback. The goal of this study is to establish a rigorous, defensible baseline of the port's current economic footprint. We want to make sure that the community, port leadership, and staff have a clear shared understanding of where the Port of Olympia stands today. Any future work that the port is doing, including any master planning efforts, could be compared to this economic impact baseline that we're wanting to establish. So taking everything that we learned from that pre-scoping phase and our individual conversations with you and port staff, we structured this updated scope around 3 primary pillars. So we heard from you that the economic and fiscal benefits of the port are important. So we are proposing to measure those hard numbers, the direct, indirect, and induced jobs, the business revenue, the labor income, and the tax revenue across all of the key lines of business for the port, including the marine terminal, the marina, the airport, and the commercial and industrial properties. Going beyond just looking at the revenues, so this study will expand to capture a balanced view. So we are also proposing assessing the ongoing and anticipated costs associated with operating and maintaining port assets. This will include evaluating future capital investments, so we have a realistic picture of long-term sustainability. Lastly, we know that ports do more than generate revenue. They exist to serve the public. So we will be evaluating the broader public good that the port provides, specifically to Thurston County taxpayer. This means looking at the community value that might not always show up on that traditional balance sheet. To make sure this study is highly accessible, we'll also be including educational information outlining the role of the port, its day-to-day functions, helping the audience understand what are the operations of the Port of Olympia. And then ultimately, our commitment with this study is to deliver clear definitions. So we've heard feedback from commissioners that it would be really beneficial to understand what are the direct, indirect, and induced jobs, how we're calculating the multipliers and the ripple effects of the port operations. So we'll provide those clear definitions, a robust methodology, and a completely transparent analysis, so you have an insight into the data and the methods that we're proposing to use. I'll turn it over to Spencer to speak to the economic and fiscal benefits piece of this.
So the analysis will really focus on 5 segments of port operations and activities. The marine terminal will include port revenue from terminal operations, also activities associated with the flow of cargo. So that includes your surface transportation, your cargo marine transportation, vessel operations, and cargo handling. The next piece is going to be the Marina Boatworks piece. So looking at revenue from mooring fees, fuel sales, on-site tenant activities, and then off-site spending by permanent and transient boaters. We did something like that for the Port of Bremerton, for instance, looking at spending patterns and spending behavior in the community by people who are transient as well as permanent boaters that were living or staying for a period of time at the marina. The airport piece will include Port of Olympia revenue again, in this case from hangar and tie-down space rentals and other sources, but then also, again, the on-site activities of airport businesses, such as Newmark Industrial Campus and Clean Water Center, but also the off-site piece. So again, the people that are utilizing the hangar, on a temporal basis and spending income elsewhere in the economy as well. Then there's the real estate portfolio. Again, port direct revenues from that, from leasing, but also from commercial operations. Oop,
Oh, sorry.
that's okay. From commercial operations. And then lastly, port events, so spending by event organizations, organizers, local vendors, and visitors from outside the port. So really the role of the port in attracting spending from outside the region through these events and people spending income on other kinds of goods and services. Those are all defined as the direct activities that we'll be looking at. Those are the things we'll be modeling and treating as directly relatable or tied to the port operations. But then we'll be going a few steps further. So we'll be looking at the indirect impact. So those are the additional wages, purchases, and business tax impacts, as well as jobs that'll be associated with those upstream transactions. So if you're an industrial tenant, or if you're like let's say a marine terminal operation, if you purchase other goods and services in the economy to support your business, that in turn translates into other jobs and economic activity. So those are your indirect impacts, or we call upstream impacts. And then there's the induced impacts, which will be all these workers who are employed either through direct activities or elsewhere in the economy in these indirect activities related to the port. When they spend income, earn income from those occupations and that employment on, whether it's groceries in the region or in the county, or, purchases of fuel, or leisure, entertainment, and other kinds of household consumption, that drives additional jobs and income and business output or revenue throughout the economy. So we will be assessing all of those through use of the Washington State Input-Output Model, which is a model that's been custom built and designed to represent the Washington State economy. And then we do some additional customizations to fit it to the county. Next slide. So with respect to then the additional analysis, we will also be looking at analysis of marine cargo activity over time. Certainly, there's been a lot of tumult in the global trade environment in the last several years. So we'll be looking at how that has changed over time and what have been some of the impacts of that, as well as the assessment of the impacts of tariffs on cargo activity, particularly on retaliatory tariffs that are applied to export cargo out of the region. For instance, like tariffs applied to commodities that are being shipped outside the port, from the port. And then we'll be looking at analysis of cargo volume user impacts. So the people, the businesses that rely on the port, for instance, as a critical public good to facilitate trade. Key data sources that we'll be relying on. We're very transparent in the data that we use. We, as much as possible, like to rely on publicly available data, and then augment that and refine that through interviews with port tenants, and where there might be gaps in the information or data that we want to collect. But we'll be relying primarily on Port of Olympia data, publicly available data from Washington State Department, Employment Security Department, Department of Revenue, and also U.S. Census Bureau. So the U.S. Trade Online is the portal to access customs data. As I mentioned, we'll use the Washington State Input-Output Model as our primary analytic tool, but then we'll be refining that and fitting that to the county. And then interviews, again, are really critical to do a couple things, certainly to gather more information that might not be available, but also to help to iterate and refine our estimates, to run numbers, but see if this makes sense or not, if we're presenting the data right, to get people's input on that as well, on specific operations. And to be clear, any data we do collect from port tenants is treated as confidential. It just serves as an input into our modeling, but we're not going to be reporting out any specific company as part of that process. Next slide. And then there will also be the ongoing and anticipated cost analysis. We'll be assessing the economic and fiscal costs associated with the operations and long-term viability. It's really broken out in several key buckets. So there's the operational costs, so costs required to operate the port assets across each of these lines of business. There's the capital improvement and infrastructure costs. So what do they anticipate those investments will be in the future, necessary to maintain competitive and functional facilities? Climate change and sea level rise mitigation, those anticipated costs. I did something similar for the Port of Port Townsend in the boatyard there as well a couple of years ago, looking at what those costs might be and those impacts from rising sea level on those operations on the boatyards there, on the public boatyard there. So looking at those costs might be need to mitigate rising sea level, for instance, in this case, from climate related risk. And then lastly, the cost to taxpayers, so cost of public support provided by Thurston County taxpayers.
Thanks, Spencer. While the hard economic numbers and the fiscal data are important, they only help tell part of the story. So to truly understand the port's value, we're also providing a comprehensive qualitative assessment of the port's community impacts. So we know that the Port of Olympia maintains and operates many public amenities and open spaces, including public plazas, waterfront access, trails and parks, recreation facilities. Beyond that, the port organizes and hosted a variety of events, serves as a regional hub for emergency services, disaster response. So these are just some examples of the community impacts that we will discuss in the report. And our goal is to make a direct connection to show exactly how these investments that the port makes in how maintaining these assets actively supports and elevates the quality of life for Thurston County residents. To highlight some of these impacts, we're proposing incorporating some storytelling vignettes. These will be those personalized real-world accounts that illustrate the port's impact beyond the numbers. So it's about putting that human face on the work that the port enables, whether it's a community event or public access to the waterfront or recreational opportunities. We are also suggesting featuring dynamic business spotlights. So we want to showcase the actual growing businesses that operate on port property and highlight those success stories to demonstrate how the port acts as a partner in job creation. In terms of the outputs, so our primary output is a comprehensive draft and final report. We're focusing on creating that compelling, relatable, accessible narrative that blends the quantitative data with strong visual elements. We want to take the complex data, and economic impact reports tend to be sometimes dry. So we want to make sure that this report is accessible for any audience to digest, and also provides that educational piece that we were talking about at the very start in terms of the port's role and the port's day-to-day operations. We're also producing a high-impact one-page summary. This is a standalone overview of the key findings. It's designed for public distribution for all audiences. Our team will also support the port to develop a communications plan and roll out those findings. And then finally, we will deliver 2 formal Port Commission presentations. The first will be an interim update. We'll be sharing our progress and preliminary analysis, and that will be followed by a final in-person presentation of our ultimate findings. Excuse me. This slide shows a high-level schedule graphic and the anticipated duration for each of the 6 tasks in our scope of work. We're assuming a kickoff in mid-June, and our team can complete the study in approximately 6 months. Once we kick off the project, we'll work with port staff to develop a more detailed schedule that highlights those interim milestones and deliverables. That brings us to the end of the presentation. I will stop sharing my screen and opening it up to any questions.
I'll note that Commissioner Hanson has not yet joined us. And with that, I'll open it up to commissioners.
I guess just to get started, I'm interested in how direct jobs are classified. You mentioned that for a real estate portfolio, would you count every single person who resides and works inside a leased property as direct jobs?
Yes, so we would be, direct jobs would be jobs at businesses that are located on port property at those specific locations on port property. So if the business has locations throughout the county, we won't be counting the countywide jobs, but specifically those jobs at that location on port property.
We have a follow-up from Commissioner Unsold.
So I actually wanted to address that because if you count all of the jobs because they occur on port property, that a possible critic could say that, but that overcounts because there are some businesses, for example, Merrill Lynch, which if it hadn't located in the building on port property, it would have located in a vacant office building somewhere else in downtown Olympia or elsewhere in Thurston County. And so how do you qualify your economic benefit as according to jobs with that? Can you say that these are the ones that are definite impact jobs because they work directly at the port or at the airport, or it's something that requires that they be there on port property? But for the ones that don't have to be on port property, can you qualify them in some way?
Mhm.
I can
Yeah,
start. Oh, go ahead, Melanie.
Go ahead, Spencer.
I think it's a really great question. It's a common question. It's a really great question that we've kind of grappled with before. Is like, how do you attribute like causality, right? How do you attribute the access to the port as being the key driver of those jobs? It's a gradient, it's certainly the marine cargo operations obviously need waterfront access, industrial access. But when you get into the commissioner, what you're describing with real estate holdings, I think that maybe we could characterize it a little bit more in that way. We still want to count them as direct because our definition of direct is on port property. We're not, one could possibly make the argument that the port making those properties available helps to entice those businesses to operate where they do. But we've defined the port essentially like an ecosystem. And what are the activities that operate within the ecosystem on port property is how we've defined direct. We haven't necessarily, in some cases like this, defined whether or not it's directly due to the access to the port. I don't know, Madeline, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, what I would add to that I think knowing that the majority or like a lot of the businesses at the port are industrial and manufacturing in nature, and as Spencer mentioned, they require waterfront access. We know that there is limited availability of industrial spaces and those industrial properties within the region. So that could be part of the story that we tell. And this question has come up in other port economic impact studies. And the way we've addressed it is during our interviews, we do target those specific larger employers, and we aim to learn whether that is a strategic location for them. So I think we could potentially, provide an estimate of a percentage of those direct impacts that are representing like a strategic locations for those businesses, while others might be located at the port, but it's just one of many locations.
This is Commissioner Vasavada. I have a related question, and I'm not sure if it's for Mike or for you as the study consultants. For me, what's very important is understanding what kind of tenants we are supporting with our land holdings and being able to wrap my hands around small businesses. Are we supporting small businesses that are incubating their business? Are we supporting manufacturers? Rutledge Farms, I know is actually supporting some seasonal workforce for youth. So knowing where our holdings are, what businesses are operating there, and what kind of workforce that business is supporting is the kind of information I'm looking for. What would it take, Mr. Mike Reed, for this study to deliver that information to us?
I think that that's a necessary piece for them to even do the analysis. So
Is that the
collecting.
case?
Yes, yeah, that's the case. We usually rely on the port to provide us with an inventory of the businesses and the tenants that are located on port property. And then we normally will go and attach an industry using Department of Revenue data, and then make a official data request to the Washington State Employment Security Department. Depending on how many businesses there are and the different industry buckets, they may or may not be able to provide us with an estimate, but we normally are able to break it down into different types of industries, whether it's more of a high level or a granular, depends on the number of tenants and data suppression issues, because sometimes there are data suppression issues, especially for like smaller businesses. But yes, we would be able to provide a breakdown of the jobs by by industry for this study.
Would we be able to see a GIS map of who are our tenants and what kind of businesses they have?
Yeah, I mean, I think that information, we have a GIS analyst and a GIS team, so we're able to map that information. As long as the port can provide a list of businesses with their location, then yes, we can easily map that information.
That would be important to me because I understand it's not within the abilities of our current staff, but I hear we're gonna have a caveat here.
One thing I want to make explicitly clear. We have office buildings. Our customer is not the tenants in the buildings. Our customer is the person who built and owned the building. So I don't have a relationship with the individual businesses. You mentioned Merrill Lynch. I don't have a relationship with Merrill Lynch. Merrill Lynch has a relationship with Pat Rance and the Rance Group. The Rance Group is who the land lessor is. That's our customer. So our tenant is the building owner that built it. I don't have a list of all of his tenants that he has in the building. They may be able to give those to us and we can pass them on to them, but we do not keep record of all of the individual tenants. For example, like the Marketplace building across the way, the Mercado is in that restaurant. Mercado is not our tenant. Our tenant is the Rance Group who owns the building. Same thing with the farmer's market. There's probably 75 vendors in the farmer's market. Those vendors are not our customer, our tenant. The Farmers Market Association and the City of Olympia, who leases the land, that's who it is. Now we can work to sort of get the information of who the tenants are that are existing in the business, but we don't have a contractual relationship with those entities. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's very helpful for me, I know. Thank you.
And it makes sense to me as well. I was formerly staff at the Department of Commerce, where we similarly would have a contractual relationship to a network who would then go and do individual grants. But there was increasing pressure for us to, through those contracts, make sure we were collecting information that would help us understand better where our money was going. So it is something I'd like us to consider as we onboard new staff, whether there is a way through our lease agreements to be getting back more information. And I do understand that might be out of the scope of what the Burke consultant can do.
We want to get Burke as much data as we possibly can. So we will, and I think we can get that data, but I just want to clearly differentiate between the two relationships, between who our tenant is and who their tenants are. A little nuanced.
Vice Chair Montano.
Yes, that's a great segue into my question I had for Spencer. You mentioned confidentiality for the tenant interviews. What does that mean? And especially since we're a public entity, I know you've worked with courts before.
Yeah, like usually, if we want to talk with businesses, and I guess it actually gets more to if we want to speak with businesses that reside within the offices or buildings that are owned by the tenants who are leasing the property. Um, we want to figure out, for instance, like, how many jobs they have, how many employees, what are their wages they pay out. That level of company information, it's a standard practice for us to offer to make that confidential, keep that confidential. It's an input into our analysis, but we wouldn't publish it in a report, for instance, because usually companies are reticent to be able to share that information.
Thank
That's
you.
usually and it just builds confidence, it builds trust to offer that. A lot of companies don't care, but we at least think it's typically just a good practice just to offer that though.
Commissioner Unseld.
So this is a little bit of a change of topic, and this has to do with scope and not methodology. So whenever we talk about economic development or jobs creation, we have to think about the environment and the fact that there is groundwater and groundwater recharge and dissolved oxygen and aquatic species and things like that. So is there any way of incorporating that kind of category into this kind of a study? So just looking at how impervious surface, so development is going to be a deterrent to groundwater recharge. And we are dependent upon groundwater in Thurston County. There is a real demand that we do low impact development. But so is that kind of, can we include that kind of element in this study?
Mhm. Yeah, we are not looking at the environmental costs. We're not, that's not part of the expertise of our team here. And also, I think it's important again to highlight that the purpose of this study is to create that baseline. So we're looking at a point in time, which is the current activity of the port. But I will say that it is not part of the scope of the study.
Mr. Hanson.
Going back just a couple steps, apologies for my late arrival, but I was listening in the car. I just wanted to make sure that I understand that when we're talking about the direct jobs at various real estate holdings, that's a standard practice, so that our report would be able to be compared against other economic impact reports from other ports around the state. Is that correct?
Yeah, that should be correct. I mean, there's never a perfect apples to apples comparison because methodologies do tend to differ a little bit in the data used and all that, but usually this is a standard practice, so it should be able to be compared.
Thank you.
Commissioner Toompas.
Yeah, I've always been curious how the port influences some of the outside areas, like in South County. Is there any way of estimating where these employees live?
We have
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, go ahead, Spencer.
Okay, I'll start. I think we both we have thoughts about this. So one of the data sources we use because as I mentioned, like we take the statewide impact model, and then to estimate the impact of household spending within Thurston County, we adjust the model. And one of the data sources we use to adjust the model is commuting patterns. So when we report out just within Thurston County, we're adjusting that spending impact for only people that are living in Thurston County and spending the bulk of their household consumption our disposable income spending like within Thurston County. So that data source though is called the LEHD, which is it's published by the Census Bureau, and so we use that pretty intensively. But it typically it'll show you where people generally where they're commuting to and from. And we will have two estimates as part of our analysis too. We will have the impacts captured within Thurston County, but then we'll also have the impacts statewide, so you could see how much of the benefit is occurring to counties outside the state, outside Thurston County, but within the state.
I'd like to build on Commissioner Tumpas's question really quickly. We serve as Thurston-wide county electeds, and there are 3 major cities, and then there's the unincorporated part of the county and some smaller cities. Sometimes there is a desire for any of the jurisdictions within our county to say, well, what's in it for me? Will the data that shows how people are traveling between areas, is there within intra-county travel data, or is it only from the county to outside of the county?
It's typically just between counties, inter-county. And even, to get smaller than that, you're getting to a really, really small sample size. But that said, I mean, there are methods to try to estimate in other ways what that distribution of benefits might be. We could certainly, looking at, for instance, like, what are the population distributions? It would be a matter of kind of triangulating different sources, but, we've done that before for other projects to look at what are some of the city benefits within that control total being the countywide impact using different sources.
I just,
Yeah,
go ahead.
oh, sorry, I was just going to quickly add that we did include economic benefits by city as well in our scope of work. So we will be providing that. And there is the LEHD data is available at smaller levels of geography, but it is, the smaller it gets, the less accurate it gets, but there is definitely data there to work with that can show those intra-county as well as outside the county commute patterns.
Because one of the challenges is that our land holdings are primarily within the city of Olympia and the city of Tumwater. And does the location of the land holdings sort of correlate to the location of the benefit? With that, we have 2 more minutes left for this section. Is there any other question from a commissioner or others for the good of the order? Looks like Mike Reed, our Director of Economic Development.
Yeah. Just one point, and it's not in the discussion. So the original proposal that that Burke provided did have a budget, a proposed amount of 66,000 with 2 riders that they could add, and that was for the community impact and vignettes. That was a $3,800 addition, plus the port event impact, which was a $4,800 addition. When and after they interviewed all of the commissioners, and there was a discussion of including the concept of doing the cost analysis as well. That's an additional piece. So the new budget proposal to achieve all of the things that were requested and proposed here today does have a budget amount of 85,000. So I will present that as part of for the action item as well.
Thank you, Mike. I would note the vignettes are more like communications pieces. And so I would just hope to hear when you present how this aligns with the other communication consulting work we were.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing this with us today. And we look forward to learning from you in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Bye.
We'll move to the Port Peninsula Master Plan Policy Foundation's long-awaited update from TRPC about the engagement that will lead to our Destination Waterfront Master Plan. Paul Brewster and Chelsea Embry, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Port Commissioners. It has been some time. It was October, different commission that we presented on an overview of talking about the need and what were some of the key planning elements that would be included in that study. Since that time, Chelsea and I have interviewed all 5 port commissioners individually. We provided you kind of a summary of your views on how the plan should move forward and what considerations should be included, what would be out. And we're back here tonight to really focus on the policy foundations for the Port Peninsula Master Plan. And we have an exercise planned for you, kind of an old school, low tech exercise that we'll do with you after we kind of get through about 15 slides here. Okay, so the key question for you tonight is how Vision 2050 should function in the master plan process. We're seeking your direction on how Vision 2050 should function and be involved, playing that role in the planning process. What topics need reassessing or some scenario or be included as parts of alternatives analysis? Overall, which goals in those actions really serve as the policy foundation, and which actions identified in the plan are really not needed? What should we not spend time and money on reassessing and revisiting that should be excluded from this master plan process?
I just add one piece of clarity of this. The reason you're doing that is after Paul did your interview of the 5 of you, there is not alignment amongst you on those questions. And for us to be able to move forward with a master plan, we have to understand the shared agreement, policy foundation of the effort. If it is discordant, start with, it doesn't create a strong footing to be able to move forward. So I think the last commission, there was a little bit more alignment on that. After we did the interviews, it does not sound like that there was clarity in that space to try to move forward with a significant master planning exercise when the framing documents, the sort of foundational documents about vision and policies and that's what is captured in Vision 2050. If those are not agreed upon as the foundation, it creates a very hard path for TRPC to move forward. So you have copies of the report of Paul's interview. When I got a copy, I went, oh no, they need to take a step back and have a conversation amongst themselves, because you can see at the time of that interview, there was not only not consensus, it was pretty distributed. Yes, Commissioner.
So I just will raise another concern that I personally feel, but also is something that I hear from constituents, and that is, how important or credible is a master plan process if development projects are going to be occurring in the area that's being planned?
These are questions that we aim to answer today. So I don't know if that's the one that we're going to answer immediately, but I do think that that is one of the areas that the 5 of you did not agree on. And so for staff don't want to make that call. They want to get direction from the commission as to how you would like to proceed. So there's a handful of questions that the staff is seeking clear commission guidance on.
I think as we go into this endeavor, it's worth thinking, I think sometimes as a lawyer, that what's our best alternative to coming to consensus, to a negotiated agreement together. And I would assume our best alternative is that we just don't have a master plan and we make ad hoc decisions. I just wanted to put that out there so we have that frame and maybe someone can think outside the box.
I would suggest that's probably the worst possible
Well, what about
outcome.
stopping all work until we have a full plan?
I don't.
Sorry to interrupt. I mean, I would think that's kind of the worst outcome.
I think those are, but I think making ad hoc decisions without any kind of framework moving forward would be a pretty bad outcome. I think there's an intermediate between consensus and no plan, and that is that we have a majority that decides this is the direction that we're going.
So I wanted to bring that up. And Vice Chair Montana, would you like to go? I think your point's important. Would you like to lay it out a little bit?
Well, and I just don't think we can stop what's currently happening here at the port completely either, so we may need to look and see if there's certain things that, you know, couldn't continue because of the master planning. We all need to come to consensus on that and move forward.
So I think what you're hearing is that it sounds to me like at least 3 commissioners are not willing to say no action. We're doing nothing further. And so we're gonna have to figure out how we find points of alignment if we want to be able to work together moving forward. But does that, I wanted to tease that point out because, so there's no action, no one develops anything because we can't come to a shared vision for the master plan, nothing happens. There's ad hoc, random things happen without a master plan. And then there's identifying possibly a narrower bridge of where we have a shared approach, or where at least 3 of 5 commissioners are willing to put their mark on an enduring plan. 3 out of 5 is not preferential because these are long-term infrastructure plans we want to make that wouldn't be very enduring if we thought that things could change. Commissioner Unsold.
Well, I am going to have to say that I feel that words were being put in my mouth, that I'm not saying that we don't do anything and just proceed ad hoc. What I'm saying is that I just have some question as to the merits of a master plan. Maybe we have to rename it.
Yeah.
Maybe we have to talk about it as being a vision statement or something like that, to help guide us if we are also going to be making other decisions ad hoc in the moment because of certain pressing things such as the amount of pulp coming in and things like that.
If I may, I would offer you not to be looking at what the outcome of the plan is yet and the credibility of that, because the process is just as important as what is going to be in the plan. And tonight we're here to talk about what are the building blocks to inform the scope of work that will lead to that community engagement in the process that we're hoping you will all as commissioners have some faith in, so that at the end you can say the process was legitimate, it was robust, these were the scenarios that were considered, this is how community engagement was collected, and this is the outcome. You are always going to have people in your community who will not be satisfied with the outcome, no matter how strong and robust a planning process is.
Yeah.
So we do have some elements in our exercise tonight that will, we hope to tease out some of these conversations that you're having. And if you don't mind, we can get through our presentation. I would like to keep this discussion to the end of that exercise, because that is the meat and substance of why we're here tonight.
Thank you. And I didn't intend to put words in your mouth. I thought it was an interesting point.
Okay.
Apologies.
Paul, real fast, could you introduce yourself and Chelsea real quick? We do have a couple of folks and then folks in the room.
So I'm Paul Brewster. I'm the interim planning manager at TRPC.
I'm Chelsea Embry. I'm the engagement specialist at TRPC.
And at this stage of the planning process, Chelsea and I are really your leads on this plan, with me leading really the plan scoping, and Chelsea is the lead on the community engagement activities. Okay. Despite the divergent views that Mike discussed, there really was agreement though on what you want this plan to do. And that is to help move the port from this broad vision of all these things that were identified in Vision 2050 and bring it to focus for the Port Peninsula, so that you have an implementable framework with actionable steps that will affect the peninsula. So it should be grounded in meaningful public engagement, demonstrate community benefit. It will provide clear direction for the peninsula, clear direction to staff, clear direction for you and future port commissioners, and a clear understanding and minimize confusion among community members and the businesses that do business here on the Port Peninsula. So you generally agree that the plan should clarify the port's long-term economic role, financial feasibility, land use mix, environmental stewardship, and your narrative about what it is that the Port of Olympia does and offers the community. So Vision 2050 is a starting point. It was adopted by the Port Commission in 2019, 7 years ago. Strategic plans like this really should be updated at least every 5 years, and this one is a little long in the tooth. So there is some understanding. It is reasonable that some members of the community are going to think it's outdated. And so some of the assumptions, some of the proposed actions in the plan do require revisiting. I'll say one thing that's probably that's likely to stand the test of time, and that is the overarching goals. Actions, I think it's fair to call into question some of the actions, but the goals, and there's 10 of them, focus areas in the Vision 2050, and 59 actions related to all of your lines of business, including your administration and your governance, funding and finance, communications, engagement, and partnership. That's a lot more than we're going to be able to get down to tonight, but at the end of my presentation, I'm going to talk to you what we're really going to focus on. Mike and I spent a little bit of time going through all of the actions and the goals of the plan. We tried to identify where there's an actual nexus with the Port Peninsula. So those are the focus areas and goals and actions that will be included in your exercise this evening. So we already kind of talked about this, but yeah, what role should this play? I'm just going to move on to the next slide here. Plans like this take time. And the critical thing for us tonight is to get direction from you. That's why Chelsea and I are here, is to get direction. And this, because it's going to take some time, it feels slow. It can be frustrating. But it's important for us to go slow so we develop some confidence in the plan, an understanding of what the guardrails are for this project, so that as we move forward, we can move forward deliberately with more efficiency, avoid confusion, and have to go back and revisit things that we overlooked at the beginning of the process. So in other words, we're going to go slow to be able to go fast later on. And so from this, our plan is to develop this scope of work. To remind you, TRPC, we're kind of the project manager for bringing in the technical expertise. TRPC won't be doing this alone. We're going to be bringing on a sub to be helping us with a lot of the technical work that we described back in October. But we will be leading the community engagement process, working with Port staff and you to identify who will be like on a steering committee or task force to be providing that focused input on all of those elements we want to cover in the scope of work. So by the end of the exercise tonight, we hope that there's areas of general agreement or alignment. We know that there will be some divergence. We expect that, but we want to have a conversation about what will it take to move in the direction, not necessarily towards consensus, but buy-in on a planning process. We're primarily focused on actions in Vision 2050, but we've introduced a few that aren't covered by Vision 2050 because they're emergent, and you brought them up, and we're gonna look at them face on tonight. Some of those areas that need updated data analysis or community input, because you have questions about whether they're still valid. Topics that should be tested through land use scenarios. And like I said earlier, topics that are going to be really out of scope, that they shouldn't be. Maybe they should be covered by some other port study or handled through another work program handled by the port.
All right, so for this sorting activity that Paul has been talking about, we're going to have big pieces of paper with lists of various actions, and we're going to ask you to tell us if we should carry it forward, reassess it, explore it as a scenario, or whether it's completely out of scope. So my brain works in colors a lot of the time. I'm imagining the carry forward, green light, that's a go. Out of scope, red light, let's stop. The two in the middle are kind of yellow lights in different shades, if you will. So, yeah, carry forward, this is pretty clear. This direction is established enough to help us with this master plan to serve as like a foundational basis for it. We should ensure that our planning process builds off of it. It should inform our scope, our public engagement, our evaluation criteria, and future recommendations. Importantly, this does not mean that every single thing has already been decided about this, that it's completely finalized in anything, or that we're not looking for public comment. We want to hear from the public on every aspect. It also means that we haven't identified like a specific action or a specific project that will eventually be included in the master plan. That's not what we're saying here either. Reassess means that this is relevant and we want to check it. We want to check it against community feedback. We might need some additional data. We might need financial analysis, a feasibility review. It's like Paul said, the Vision 2050 goals and actions were established in 2019. It's been 7 years, a whole pandemic happened, things have changed. So we might just want to check in, do a temp check, see how that's going. Conditions may have changed, yeah. Explore as a scenario. This means like this is an option. There might be other options essentially. So we shouldn't be assuming any one preferred direction up front. And we should definitely be comparing trade-offs and consequences before deciding. Paul will talk more about this, but scenarios could examine different approaches to things like how land use is being used, various maritime and industrial functions, public access and recreation, environmental restoration, economic development, and infrastructure and parking.
Hold on to that. Okay. So on this one, we're talking about alternatives analysis before we're talking about scenario testing. And this is going to be at the heart of this plan and the community engagement process. This is where we start to identify various mixes of land use. Like for example, the marine terminal, zoned industrial, but how could the footprint of the marine terminal perhaps be reconfigured? Could the footprint of the log yard be reduced somewhat to make room for other uses such as manufacturing or processing? Other uses on the north end. We don't have all the details. Subject matter expertise would help bring in how this land use scenario is going to work itself out, but we imagine it will be highly visual with renderings of what that land use would look like, perhaps from a 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional point of view, looking at comparing economic, environmental, public benefit, costs of implementation, and allowing the community to see that and understand what would be the consequences, both beneficial and maybe adverse impacts of what these types of land use scenarios would offer to be able to provide input, ultimately to lead to a preferred scenario, but that preferred scenario isn't necessarily scenario 1 versus scenario 3. Likely in this alternatives analysis, we're going to see that there's various elements of these land use types. For example, let's just say open space, public access to the waterfront, that there might be elements of that people like and want to see included more or hybrid with the mix of, say, a light industrial working waterfront scenario.
And the final of our 4 categories is out of scope. This one's probably also pretty clear. It essentially just means that this topic might be important, but maybe it's not specific to the Port Peninsula. Maybe it's not for this particular master planning process. Might belong in another port process, another operational decision, another capital project, or future policy decision. But for the purposes of this Peninsula Master Plan, we shouldn't be using time, budget, or public engagement capacity, any other resources on this particular item.
Okay, so I showed you that earlier slide of all the 10 actions and 10 goals, focus areas, and 59 actions. So we whittled it down to 7 goal areas, 18 actions, and we're introducing 3 emergent topics. And so the focus areas are marine terminal, the Marina and Boatworks, destination waterfront, countywide economic development and real estate, non-trade maritime functions, environmental sustainability, communications, engagement, and partnership. And we do have some handouts. They're the matrices. Chelsea, yes, if you can hand those out. Grab some tape.
We did this 6 months ago. And then also. They weren't here. I know.
I did.
And.
Maybe just here. And then what I want to show, because I don't know, do we have online participants?
No, commissioners are participating online.
Okay. If there's any members of the community who are online in this, I just want to point out, this is an example of the posters that the commissioners are going to be working from. There are 6 posters for these 7 areas. And it shows the action number, short description of the action. What I want to say is the goal, that's verbatim from Vision 2050. Actions, I kind of took the liberty of somewhat paraphrasing and rewording just for clarification and abbreviation. It has the community priority, the results of all the community survey work and outreach that was done, to how this action ranked among the public. And then there's these 4 categories of carry forward, reassess, explore scenarios are out of scope. Your activity for the next 20 minutes or so, and if you can get it done faster, great, is to place, you're going to be given a sheet of dots.
God exercise.
Dot democracy exercise here. And you are just going to place the dot, whether you think this action, where it falls into these 4 categories. Tell Commissioner Vasavita is really excited to do this exercise.
We did this 6 months, or a year ago, but it has to be redone.
All right, I wasn't aware you.
It was slightly different.
Okay.
They've whittled them down. It's a narrower group.
Yeah, new commission.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Are we only given greens? I like that.
Oh, yeah, that person makes it.
One commission with many ideas. Yeah, you only got green. If I will offer this, if you want to like annotate, you could write your initials inside that green dot if you like.
So these are green dots. We talked about color, but we're just.
Ignore that.
List of.
Yeah. Ignore Chelsea's analogy. Very useful, but
I heard you.
that doesn't apply here.
I got it.
They're subtly trying to get us to.
I know, it's like-
agree and come along.
Yeah, no, not every, green doesn't mean go on the dots. And if you need more dots, I will also add on the posters. You got 'em.
Are we voting on every one?
On every one.
So,
On the posters.
Do we have enough dots?
Yeah, there's enough dots. There's 18 actions, so you need 18 dots plus a little more. You have, I think there's 24 dots on the sheet.
So on this line, you can either choose to put it here, 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 or here. This line here, here, here,
Yep.
or there.
And on the bottom are some blank rows. So
Enough jobs,
you have enough, and we have more if you run out.
so we can do all.
We have some Sharpies. If you want to add an action, if there's something that's missing from Vision 2050, or there's another emergent issue that TRPC should be considering to work into the scope, annotate it to the bottom.
So
Yeah,
this one's interesting to me. So explore the second warehouse. So out of scope would probably mean don't even look at it as part of the This,
That's right.
well, it's probably gonna not be relevant anyway.
By the
It's
time,
probably out of scope.
I guess what you're saying,
What are you
timeline
saying?
down the road, it might be out of scope, but.
It's a little bit out of scope because it's,
Which is that?
because it's not timely enough, right?
One of the questions could be, the alternative would be explore a scenario. It's not a done decision. You want to take it out and put it in as part of the mix, whether it would be in or out of the land use scenario. Or you could say, don't want it don't want it as part of the policy foundation to present to the community.
So when I say out of scope, it means, it's not saying I oppose it, it's saying I don't want
Slow to go fast.
to spend the resources to study.
Yes.
And nobody. I mean, Tom's architect. For me, I don't know how we can do one without doing. I don't know.
Is there a,
Opportunities.
how many?
If it's like.
6 posters,
Six posters.
seven focus areas.
I feel like everything, I just want to do
About 3,
I know.
about 3 emerging.
It was a big mistake.
Those are annotated as new.
Some
humanitarian is.
Well, we are.
That's actually what-
You did the right thing. Yeah.
You the doctor.
Question one for you. More welcome, yeah.
Humanitarian,
Sure.
military, it's interesting, like those.
It is a hard one because
Good, bus.
Defend.
Not sure.
versus innovate, pursue value added many.
Right, music.
Pursue value adding goals. We have to carry
Nation anchored to support.
the study.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It is.
So that's.
Or
my
if there's
interpretation of
there's
that.
another one.
There's different ways of interpreting these.
I read that action. We gotta. That one on there.
Which 3 left out, obviously, here.
Storage, other was.
What does that even mean?
When?
What is this? one?
Show there.
Like as opposed to not?
Do they? I feel like, can we even like say no to that?
That's what it says in the plan, so
I almost,
it ranked 3rd. I think it was specific to humanitarian and military.
It was really
it was
about.
really not the military.
And the consequences of this is you're gonna do specialized cargoes like that, what infrastructure needs to be necessary to be able to process and handle something. If it was military, it'd be like 6.
So we've already voted this is a position of the commission, but we're asking the question again.
It's out of scope for me because it's not timely enough.
Because it's already been, yeah.
I see, so that will.
That makes sense to me. I understand that.
It's like, what do we want to spend resources?
Yeah, right.
Okay, so you've taken action to approve this?
Yep.
Okay, I was not aware of that.
Well, there's another.
Add launch points.
Watching all the videos.
To get all my intel from staff.
I don't blame you.
I've got way too many other projects.
I don't know.
Question that was raised by.
At the time they were interviewed.
Human power. Accessibility. Destination, Lieutenant, report.
The other 3 posters are up here behind the.
Strategies to accommodate, I love that one.
Back in those days, and he actually and we have actually.
Restrooms, garbage, and other amenities and the market. Hasn't this already been accomplished?
I don't know. So is that out of scope then? It seems like they have.
Amenities to court.
Apparently there's 6 people.
Are,
How important is our, I feel like
for those of you.
this public stats, surveys, staff, and the commission.
Landing has a-
Like there are no bathrooms at the Port Plaza. No public bathrooms. Yeah,
That means something.
I would not say that.
Provides the policy direction of the budget for.
We haven't added any of this.
Staff.
Yeah. Was adopted.
In our work, we take guidance.
Funny thing is the last.
It's gonna save it,
I would want to change.
and we will present that to you. You choose.
Get down here.
Oh. The things that were.
Yeah.
Actually, what they're.
The 7 was economic development.
Thank you.
Yeah.
On here.
You're good.
Yeah, because we, IT, there are certain places that they're not gonna bring a bus stop to. So there's more. So what?
Why is it? I love it.
I am an outlier. Oh, I think that's.
That'll take you to the third floor.
Careful.
Said they were on the first floor. They're actually on the second floor. Makes more sense, then more people. Third floor, they'll go straight up.
Anyway, how that I don't know if that's. Let's go. Yeah.
But there's something it's about public records. I think those are connected.
You always know.
About exploring this area.
Already decided it.
So this one is done.
I feel like in some ways this same inclusion is excited by the
Building a new
funding areas.
at least.
I mean, this is long-term, like, thing one.
Feel is,
Yeah,
That's how everything.
long-term.
I guess they've got 9 indoor pool.
Classic finding study.
That's from them.
Out of scope for living.
We got an extra set here.
Well, they have
Extra set.
city.
I wonder if that was. supposed to be
I
good.
was doing, I was like, hey, a phone call.
Then that
Issue
would
is just what science
be
that
a
I think current.
So
Any
5
assumptions?
there.
Zero public.
4 there.
Yeah, that's here, so I'm wondering if.
YMCA is.
Yeah, I sent you, yeah.
Official.
Community development, community.
They free respond, I was like,
Because
okay.
it's not, and the same for the. Only 2 floor. So
Okay.
they're not designed.
They had just found out about this meeting and.
Yep.
It's very stupid.
Oh, right.
I was just like, dude.
Now I'm officially here.
And,
Yes.
Yeah, they like.
It's like, and then-
There's been the
It's such a celebration.
change of.
I actually left the version of it.
Oh,
It was before even.
Sort of,
It's just
we are in austere times, we can't
It
have
already
nice.
saying I'm bored, I'm bored, I'm bored.
Yeah, you know, with government can't do anything for itself. For the citizens. That's kind of nice. Or in this austerity mindset.
Sixth, the mysterious sixth commissioner. Chelsea and I were wondering if.
Maybe trying out, like, is he?
Do nice
I think it was.
Someone prefers to wait their time.
True. Do that, I guess.
What do we do? UPA,
Joel, did you finish?
I did, I have 3 left, that's where I'm at, right?
the YCC.
One things and there were. Yeah, you did it. You get an A. I
Try not to think too hard, I just go, kind of what strikes me.
Is when I'm on some.
I was unusually good at taking standardized tests as a kid. I like, I'm better at taking tests than like actually as a student. And a part of my strategy was just like, whatever jumps out at you, that's it, and you keep moving.
That worked well. I was a terrible test taker and I never did that, so maybe that's why.
Yeah,
All that.
very good.
Yeah, I much preferred writing essays.
Oh, yeah, no, not me. Yeah, all my scholarship money was for my SAT scores, not for anything else.
How are we doing? We only have 10 more minutes in theory, but we're getting ready.
I think we're pretty close to wrapping on this conversation.
They've got to gather this before they can come back.
Let's sticker it up.
Things, is he?
I only got 3 left.
I was just wondering. I thought she only had 11 when I was thinking.
The only thing, one more shout out on the marine terminal. We got 6 dots on 1 row. So I don't know if someone tried to wait a dot.
We got 5 on this one, we got 4 on this one, we got 6 on this one, we got.
Someone messed up,
So this, I'm guessing if we got 4 on this line, then we got 6, somebody meant to up here.
We're also missing the dots here in some scattered places. These items only have 4.
did our best.
Oh, this one got 5. Oh,
Counted.
5. If you didn't.
You should only have 3 dots left on your sheet.
Yeah, there was 21 actions.
Okay.
What did you do that? This one's got 4. I like that you called them out. Okay. I think we got this one. This one is now closed.
Okay.
Closed.
That was close.
One is
Move.
a weird between number 2 and 3.
I added that.
Sort that out.
Oh. I think there is a different one for transportation.
We want to have part-time side away from
yeah.
the terminal.
Someone raise their hand.
You think this isn't even.
Are we missing one?
No, that one's full.
This one should be
We're
5, 5, that's.
No, this one.
You too.
Right.
Oh, okay. So then this one, we are missing one.
Yeah.
And
It just seems to me like the same.
I guess I didn't.
1,000 miles.
Census in this space. So I don't know. It's an area for me means. I will look. Only good thing is that.
How about we just do in there, I think. Upstairs and watch. Number 3.
Okay.
All right.
We got Ruth missing. Okay. Zitty's in the back.
In the computers.
Okay, overall, what we see is quite a few trends on. A lot on carry forward across all the categories that's really helpful for Chelsea and I. Very little on the reassess. I think I saw. Didn't see any anything being reassessed. Which implies that there's no new data needed. Several on the explore scenario and several that are out of scope. And so I have some questions on the marine terminal. There's a 3rd ranked develop and implement strategies to handle humanitarian and military cargoes. I have an extra dot on one of these. But we have 3 a split on explorer's scenario and 3 as out of scope. Any thoughts on that one? I'm just kind of curious to hear. That's one that's just sort of split.
It's interesting that that's being looked into when in different types of cargo. Because you see that as more controversial.
It has been historically, yes. And I think that that's ultimately why it got captured as a point in Vision 2050 as one of the actions was there had been community conversation about that. And I think that it was trying to suss out, is this a primary point? That's my interpretation.
Did Vision 2050 precede or post-date all of the demonstration?
The last demonstration was in 2007 concerning military cargo. That's-
10 years later, the Vision 2050 said, let's explore the.
I think many of us have been taught that we have little option about what kind of cargo comes in. Ultimately, we'd be able to shut down the terminal if we felt like it was no longer providing a lot of value, but there was so it's a weird kind of, it's framed to address a community need, but maybe not an actual administrative goal for us.
It could maybe also be an operational need.
And a
for-
land
for-
use thing. If we were really, for example, if you wanted to say, hey, this is a cargo that we want to have the primary relationship with JBLM. JBLM may say to you, well, you're missing this piece, and this piece from like an operational function. So same thing with, there was a question in about pursue manufacturing or something. Okay, where on the marine terminal, and does it have the right sort of power source, and are the utilities correct in that location? So some of these do have nexus points potentially to a land use planning exercise. That I could see the humanitarian cargo being okay on what berth, and do you have the right infrastructure to accommodate it?
I'll just say, I would change mine from explore to outer scope, because I don't think.
Conversation I'd like to have, but it could be separate from this. enterprise.
Anybody else have anything to weigh in on that one? What I'm hearing is that's out of scope. Something has some relevance, but can be handled in another work program.
Yeah, I put my dot on the scenario, but I'm fine for it to be out of scope of this project.
Okay, on countywide economic development and real estate framework, create and support small and emerging businesses. For example, light manufacturing, commercial kitchen, 2 commissioners carry forward, 3 explore as scenario. For those that identified explore as scenario, is that, tell me more, is it you're looking to see what types the community would like to respond to, or what is the?
I put explore because I don't know about creating new business, like, I don't think we are creating businesses, so I didn't like the way it was framed.
Okay.
Support is a different to it, so I wanted to understand what was envisioned there.
And carry forward seemed inaccurate since we're not doing that today.
I agree with
Okay.
with them. I was one of the ones to carry it forward, but I do agree that we don't actually provide, I mean, we don't do the businesses. We provide an opportunity for businesses to come in.
And I think that was the intent of the action, was creating the opportunity, like with the Tumwater Newmarket Industrial Campus plan was about creating smaller or flex spaces that could provide the types of leases for smaller businesses that could be a catalyst for other businesses then populating in those areas.
So if it's explore, doesn't that mean we want to?
Yeah, explore means it's in. I was just trying to differentiate why there was a split, and that you cleared that up. Okay, on non-trade maritime functions. There's 2 that stand out: participate in state-led ferry services. We have 3 carry forward, 2 explore as scenario.
I said explore largely because if the state's going to be doing it, then that's their responsibility. We can see what they learn from it, but I don't see that we have to commit our resources to participate.
why I put carry forward, actually, I would say the same exact reasoning. I was just reading it, you know. Why not?
Different interpretation of how you're
What
reading
they're
it.
doing.
And right now, there's no plan of the state to provide any ferry service to Olympia. We will not be in any of their long-term plans.
When you look at this is for us a short-term issue, but it's also a long-term issue. This is looking at potentially 50 years into the future. Right, so. I feel it's definitely something that we should.
One more I'll do with you, just respect for time on environmental sustainability. Ensure equal consideration for environmental impacts when evaluating the cost benefit of future projects, for example, habitat, air, water, noise, air, etc. 2 commissioners say this is carry forward. 3, explore a scenario.
Ensure equal consideration for environmental impacts when evaluating the cost benefit of future projects, habitat, air, water, noise, etc.
Under the scenario analysis, for a planned action EIS, all those things would be evaluated.
I mean, it almost seems like that's required that be
Yeah.
done under SEPA. And so is that what people meant by carry it? I mean, that's what I meant, carry it forward. And
I guess I was thinking that if and when there is a project, all that work happens. So how much of it needs to be front loaded into this process?
Okay, I see. Yeah, well, we would commit to doing that, but we wouldn't actually be doing it. Is that, so that's what
Yeah,
you're,
not in the,
not in this
not in the work
master
to
plan.
doing immediately on a master plan. I would-
Right. Does that make sense?
It does.
Let's say that this is out of scope. Does that mean, what does that mean to you as far as comparing the two?
I wouldn't expect that one to be out of scope with this project. I would be really surprised if any of you that's out of scope.
I think what is triggering for me is we have there had been litigation about our airport master plan, and the proponents of the litigation argued that we had to identify all these possible impacts of projects that might never come to fruition, and that's what was an issue. So as we create something like this and we say, oh yeah, we'd love to possibly maintain space here for 50 years from now, X thing. I don't want to be engaging in EIS on things that are so far in the distance that I'd be throwing away dollars now. So so it's just about what does that mean? It's another one that we don't know what it means. But of course, we should consider environmental impacts as we make decisions.
Thank you. Was there any revelations for you in this? No surprises on any of these actions? Okay.
Well, I think you're building process trust because there was more consensus among us than I think we would have thought going in.
Thank you. Chelsea, anything to add? Neil?
I don't think so. Thanks all for participating. Before we let you go, we are 5 months into this new
Yes.
commission. We are 2 years into this project. I'm so glad we changed courses and you're leading us through it. When you give us some kind of timeline, we can come back next week and give us
So
2 weeks from now.
how about this? What I've shared with Mike is we would like to have a draft scope of work by June, end of June. And I will be coordinating with staff to review that. And then bringing it to the commission. Mike and I have talked about, it might be advantageous, just for the sake of time, to start meeting with some of you, like in pairs or one-on-one, to also get feedback on that scope. But we're bringing it back to commission meeting, not a work session for advisory.
We would like to ask permission, instead of trying to do some of this work with all 5 of you at one time, to try to do this in groups of 2, so we're not creating meetings. You're hard to get as a group of 5. And so it slows us down significantly. So we'd like to be able to, if we need to interface and do temperature checking, we would do that in groups of 2. If that's okay. Yeah.
I'll point out the obvious that we are 5 of us, so groups of 2.
Somebody's going
to be alone and
somebody's gonna be alone.
preferential treatment.
Yeah, we would have to do some alone, but we're looking for smaller groups. That way we can go faster. Otherwise, if we have to do all of this at commission work sessions, it's gonna take a long time. So decision-making would always happen at a commission meeting. Temperature checking, we wanna do in smaller groups, if that's okay. Okay, I will let you all decide. We will work with you to decide the pairing.
All right, thank you. With that, we've gone a little bit over and we do have people here. I want to thank Paul and Chelsea. We look forward to whenever we'll see you again. And I'll keep these green stickers, which means go. Evergreen pool discussion. I'd like to call some folks to the table to be part of a discussion with us. William Ward from the Evergreen State College, Henry Valls, community organizer, Paul Simmons, city manager of the city of Tumwater. And I'd also like to invite Joellen, who raised this issue to us originally. Okay. Joellen, what's your last name? Wilhelm. Wilhelm. Please come join us. And I want to preface this. I understand that Mr. Ward has a presentation and Mr. Simmons has a presentation ready, unless that's changed. Alex, did you have?
No, I just don't see Paul.
All on his way, I just got a note.
Okay. Park was on the list too. EARC.
Yes, Mr. Camber.
Yes, is here.
Or whoever their designee is for this meeting, just come join us at the table.
We both do that, okay?
Madam President, may we both join?
Sure.
Some Heather.
We'll do a round of introductions while we're awaiting Mr. Simmons, but I want to preface this conversation. We wanted to create a forum for there to be a public community conversation, including the experts from Evergreen State College, the advocates who've been showing up at all of our meetings and just really making it clear how important this is to their community. And us as port commissioners, I want to acknowledge that this pool exists as a facility at Evergreen State College. The commission has no jurisdiction over this pool. What is our interest, you might ask? Our interest is in facilitating a transparent conversation about a piece of infrastructure that has regional significance. We are an economic development entity. Will typically cost money and don't make money. And I'm going to recognize that up front. But let's just at all see if there's a path forward for those who are looking sustainably to move this pool forward. Alex, I had hoped we would have a person from King Aquatics.
They're going to be
invited.
participating online.
Okay, can you include I don't see their name on this agenda.
Did not get their full names. I don't know, Henry, if you.
It should be Elizabeth Yen.
Okay, terrific. Missy, can you promote Elizabeth Yen into the webinar?
She's in.
Oh, terrific. That's great to hear from the Evergreen Pool. So consider her part of our roundtable. And I think we were hoping to start with Mr. Paul, and he's here, Paul Simmons. I would like to start with that presentation. The work on the Public Facilities District at Tumwater transcends. It is not limited or focused specifically on the Evergreen Pool. It may be relevant context. So Paul, why don't you, if you are ready,
Did we do the introductions?
oh yeah, we'll do introductions.
Okay.
Let's go this way. Commissioner Hanson, you go first.
Okay, Joel Hanson, Commissioner District 4 for the Port of Olympia.
Jerry Tumpas, I'm District 2.
Alex Smith, I'm the executive director.
Henry Valls, community advocate.
Joellen Wilhelm, community advocate.
Heather Antonias, CEO for the Park Foundation.
Jim Camber, Park Foundation.
William Ward, Chief Administrative Officer, the Evergreen State College.
Paul Simmons, Tumwater City Administrator.
I'm Carl Gonzalez, Commissioner for District 3.
Chair Montano, Commissioner for District 5.
Jasmine Vasavita, Port President Commissioner for this district where we're sitting, District 1. So especially as we're going to start with Paul, but I want to really thank Evergreen for participating in this discussion and bringing your information to the table today. Paul, why don't you kick us off?
Sure. First off, sorry, I was a couple minutes late, so settling in here as we go. And I do have a short presentation that I recycled that I had given at a meeting recently. I didn't have time to adjust the cover slide, and it's a PDF, and my admins have been out for a couple weeks. And so anyways, apologize for the cover slide as we get into it, but I gave it to Mike and he was gonna bring it up. So I want to give a little context about, I was asked to talk about efforts related to developing a public facility, a second public facilities district. Mike, if you want to slide to the next slide, because that's the one that's recycled, but that was from a meeting we had last month. It's a PDF, so you just scroll down. You can just scroll down. Yeah, perfect. So I want to talk a little bit just about kind of context. This is the public facilities district is not something that will solve our issues tomorrow. It's a long-term solution, and it's something that we've been working on for quite some time. My role, I've been serving as the Tumwater City Administrator since January. Prior to that, I was the Olympia Parks, Arts and Recreation Director for close to 12 years. And while I was in that role, back in 2021 and 2022, and 2020, we hosted and facilitated a regional aquatics feasibility study. And part of the reason we worked on it regionally was because, and I remember at the time when I was in Olympia, one of the things I had learned was that in the 80s, the city of Olympia tried to pass a ballot measure to build a pool, and it had like 30% support, a little over 30% support. It was not widely supported. And the feedback that I had heard, I was a kid at the time, but the feedback that I had heard was that the Olympia taxpayers didn't want to burden the cost of the region's only public swimming pool. Flash forward a decade, then in the 90s, Tumwater tried to do a bond to build a pool, the city of Tumwater. That one also failed. I never heard the margins on that one. And I don't know the whole stories of why, because I hadn't been there. I had a little more information about Olympia when I was working there at the time. Then when in 2003, when the first public facilities district was talked about to do the hands-on museum and the RAC, there was also a proposal to build a pool in Tumwater where the library is. Again, I wasn't here at the time, but the RAC and the hands-on museum moved forward. I assume it probably had something to do with costs and the amount of money that was generated, but the Tumwater pool didn't materialize at that time either. So flash forward several years, there's still a need for a public swimming facility in Thurston County. The only options when we were doing the study were if you had a membership at the Valley Athletic Club or the YMCA, or if you were part of a competitive swim club, then you could, partake at the Evergreen pool. And that was at the time when we did the study. And I know that's changed. I know there have been times when Evergreen's been a little more open to the community and times when it hasn't. That's been inconsistent over the years, but at the time that was the focus. So when we did this study, one of the things, when I was the Olympia Parks Director, as I said, I didn't want to make the same mistakes as the past. Different cities have tried to pursue this individually. It doesn't work when one city tries to go out alone. Let's look at a regional focus. And so what we did was we invited, the city of Olympia funded it, but we invited all of the entities that you see listed on this slide to participate. And we had a stakeholder group of about 27 different folks that participated in this process. It lasted for a couple of years. We did a market analysis. We did a survey across Thurston County. It was a very in-depth process. And if you go to the City of Olympia website and search regional aquatic facility, you can look at that entire study. You can pull up the appendixes. You can look at the survey results. You can look at the market analysis, lots of information. There's also a fly-through video that shows what came to be. We can jump to the next slide. But at the time,
jump to the next slide, please.
At the time, the Evergreen State College had talked to us when they were participating in the process with us. They had said, hey, we're thinking of investing in the pool and we could be potentially the region's competitive swim area. And so at the time when we did this study, we focused very heavy on the recreational needs and we didn't focus on competition. That now has since changed. And we're in a different time now than we were back then. And so recognizing that there's some work that needs to be done with this feasibility study. This was a survey question that we asked about supporting the feasibility study. And I should also acknowledge that this was an opt-in survey. This wasn't a statistically valid survey. This was a survey that was put out across the region that said, hey, you support the idea of a regional aquatic facility. We had 90% support, enthusiastically support. And then another 7% moderate, as you can see, of the 900 plus people that opted into the survey. And if you go into the appendixes, it breaks it out by school district, because and there's some different breakouts, but I thought this was a encouraging slide. Go ahead and keep going. We also talked about how much do existing pools meet your needs? And less than 5% said the existing pools out there are meeting the current swimming needs. You had 55% say some. I imagine if you were to do this poll after Evergreen closes, it probably changes even less favorable on this, if that's what happens. And then 40%. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So this was the design that the group landed on after a whole lot of process of studying survey results. We had a series of meetings. We had a public. This was the design that came, and again, it was very recreational focused. One of the things we've talked about is if we're going to update this, one of the things we could do is take the lap pool, which was a recreational lap pool, and what would we need to do to make that a full-fledged competition pool? Well, first we need depths to accommodate starting blocks. We're gonna need more deck space. We're gonna need more spectator space. Are the locker room size enough? Do we have enough parking? So there's some elements that would need to happen, but I'll point that out as kind of a next step. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And then there's just some renderings. Again, these were all, I want to be really careful. We have the study and we did this, but this is a concept plan. So this is a very preliminary, is there a need for an aquatic facility, which was overwhelming yes in this area. And this is what, based on the market analysis that we did at the time, this was what was needed. We can keep going. There's just a few more visuals. And again, there's like a fly-through video if you go to the Olympia website. And then one more. Oh, there we go. Okay, so the next step. So in 2020, in 2022, and I'll try to be quick with my recap here. In 2022, we finished the study. The whole idea was the next step was to then go out and see if we had funding partners that could help advance this forward. Then once we did that, we would do a site selection, figure out how to acquire if we didn't already own whatever property that was, and then develop a financial strategy, which eventually would lead to a ballot measure and have a governance agreement and that sort of thing. The trouble was when we finished the study and we went to look for funding partners, and I was at the City of Olympia, there were none. And so everything kind of stalled for a beat while we were trying to look at how we move forward. At that time, we were contacted from State Senator Brad Hawkins in Wenatchee, who reached out and said, hey, I'm aware of your aquatics facility feasibility study. He said, we're trying to build a pool in Wenatchee. And we think that we think we've crafted legislation that would allow for the creation of a second PFD. Would you be willing to be a bipartisan partner with us on this, given your needs and the work that you had done? So we said yes. And at the time, State Senator Sam Hunt happily signed on as a co-sponsor to Senator Hawkins to support that. And then at the time, Representative Bateman and Representative Dolio were both very helpful in getting that initial legislation for the second PFD. The one caveat was that in order to get support, to get it across the finish line, there was an expiration date to where you had to form the second PFD by June 30th of this year, which was a month and a half away, which at the time seemed like a really long time. At the time, there were also different things happening in the different cities. In the city of Olympia, they were talking about a regional fire authority. There was also a pending budget crisis, which has since materialized over the last couple of years. There was talks of the levy lid lift. There were a lot of reasons that we weren't quite ready when I was working in Olympia to move this forward. I also took another position temporarily for the Parks Tacoma, which is a park district up north. And so I left the situation for a little while. In January, I was offered the position for the city administrator in Tumwater. I came back in and I learned that there was a legislative effort already underway to remove that expiration date from the PFD the authority to create the second PFD. And so on my first week on the job, I was up at the Capitol testifying, and we were luckily successful in that, in large part thanks to Senator Bateman, Representative Dolio, and Representative Parsley. We were able to get that through and the governor signed it. So now the expiration date has been removed, which allows the PFD2 legislation to move forward, which then creates that as a long-term solution to address a regional problem with a regional solution. So we are, now that that was approved just a month or so ago, we are in the process of working with the regional cities to talk about, okay, if we're going to do this, what does this look like moving forward? And we're in those preliminary steps of discussing what that looks like. If we're successful in getting the regional partners back to the table, to me, the next step then to advance the work forward is to form a committee that breaks into 2 tracks. And I would love to see elected officials, executive staff, and parks director level staff participate in this from all the agencies involved. And the 2 tracks to move forward would be one group focused on forming the PFD and what's the legal components of that, what's the governance look like, what's that process, how does that come together? So one group would focus on that. The other group would focus on our concept design that we had and figure out what does it take to turn this into a competitive pool? What does it take to get us from concept design to 30% design so then that we could use that to then inform a future ballot initiative at some point in the future. And so developing that scope of work and then developing a funding strategy. Perhaps we ask for legislative funds or other things to help fund that work moving forward. So that would be the pathway that we see the PFD2 moving forward. Again, I want to reiterate, that's a long-term solution. That's not something that solves this year's problem, next year's problem, or probably even 2 years after that. It's probably realistically, when you're talking about bringing this many governments together, we're probably looking at a 4 to 6 year window on the optimistic side of things, assuming everything aligned, just to be realistic. While I have the floor, I just want to clear up a couple things because I've heard a rumor that maybe the city of Tumwater isn't supportive of Evergreen remaining open because we think that it hurts our chances to move for PFD. I want to say explicitly that is not the case. If somebody can fund Evergreen and keep the pool functioning, and that's what Evergreen wants, the city of Tumwater is 100% on board with that. We want people to have access to swimming. The city of Tumwater's received a lot of advocacy requests from community members wanting to see the pool stay open. I'll be honest, the majority of the vast majority, if not all, the advocacy is from City of Olympia residents. The Tumwater School District, we've heard, is working with North Thurston. And so at this point, it's hard for the city of Tumwater to justify if our competitive swim team needs are being met with an alternative location. It's hard to justify using Tumwater resources to keep a pool on the other side of Olympia open. We're going to focus our resources and our energy on the long-term, more permanent solution. But that doesn't mean that Tumwater's not supportive of the Evergreen pool staying open and doesn't want to see that happen if for some reason that could materialize from the partner. So I kind of wanted to put that out there too and kind of clear that up as well. So I just said a whole bunch of stuff real fast. And again, I came in a little bit late, so sorry if I was kind of scrambled, but I'm happy to participate and engage in discussions, but just kind of wanted to talk about those efforts that are we continue to work on and will continue to work on moving forward.
That was terrific. I'm going to ask commissioners to hold questions as we unlock more voices in this conversation. So William Ward, Evergreen State College, thank you. I think you shared with me a document, that maybe you have it online.
A presentation.
Wonderful.
First, let me say thank you very much to school. Appreciates the opportunity to be here this evening. I've been involved with these discussions, I think, for about 2 months now with various legislators, community members, commissioners, a lot of different groups, and we do appreciate the attention being brought to this. This is an asset. And we've done our best. The school has done its best for many, many years to help serve the needs of the community outside of also the school as well too. So I have been with the Evergreen State College for 7.5 years. I'm basically responsible for taking care of the beautiful 1,000-acre campus. And when it comes to the pool, it's been a challenge for the last 6 years or so, just to let you know, because at the end of the day, it's almost the only infrastructure on campus that I haven't been able to completely modernize and to be able to take care of. There was rumors going around. So I want to try to make sure we're very transparent and help to bring accurate information to everybody. But I've heard all kinds of things. If you close the pool down, the walls of the deep well and the pool will collapse and it will fall into the amphitheater. You'll never get it back up. I've taken down every critical piece of infrastructure on the campus. We've spent about $130-some million that we've gotten from the state, modernizing that campus for the next 50 years. So the pool is really the only one. I haven't been able to do that. And I had to go work with the president a few years ago to get emergency funding because we were having concrete spalling that was falling down because I guess from the Nisqually quake or whatever it was, there was some deterioration. So we were able to get some emergency money to take care of the pool deck. There were issues with the lighting and there was the exterior and interior concrete walls we had to address as quickly as possible. We did that on a very tight time frame to keep the pool open for the community as well too. So it's been a challenge, but we've gotten to the point where, and I'm going to show you some pictures here, that we have to make critical repairs if the pool is going to stay open. And President Dr. Carmichael has been very consistent in his messaging that there's 2 components to this. The first one is the annual operating expense. And the last year we went back, tried to collect as much information, work orders, utility bills, everything else. And we estimated that the estimated average is $250,000 a year. But the actual cost for last year was just a little over $300,000 because we had an ATS switch for that facility that we needed to have that actually failed. And I'm going to show you here in just a little while. So it's not that we have totally neglected the pool. That is not the case. So we've tried to do Band-Aids as much as possible to keep the pool open. So that's one thing. The expenses with the budget reductions and everything else that's happening at the state level, we've had to make some really tough decisions. The other thing is the capital costs, and I'll go through that here in just a minute. To talk about that, in 2014, there was a study before I got there by a third party that estimated well over $1 million just to do the capital infrastructure that was needed. And then there was another figure of over $3 million to convert it to a saline type of pool at that time. So that was 2014. I'll share that here in just a second. 2019, when I got there, 2 of my engineer that I had on staff and 2 of my construction coordinators also did a study because they were trying to figure out how we could do some of these critical repairs. That came up to close to about $900,000. And then I'm still advocating it's close to $1 million. So we have different studies, and it's not just my word at this because I was even challenged. So I had to go back and dig all these records up and help our school to understand where it was at as well. So there is a tremendous need. The president has advocated over and over again, and I'll show you in a document. There's a memo here with a link to the website so you can actually see what was communicated. That we are looking for partners that if they can come up with a financial solution to help the school in both those categories, not just operating, but also capital, to operate it in a safe manner as well too. We don't want to ever get back to where we were. We had concrete falling off the walls and stuff of that nature. To be able to work together with a partner that can help us as well too, and help meet the community needs. As we've all said here, as we've heard as well, is that this is not a community pool, it's a competitive pool. They're a lot more expensive to operate as well too. So I just wanted to share some of that and try to bring some clarity and transparency to everybody, because I've heard of all kinds of different things. I've been in probably about 15 different meetings. I've met some of you before, so I'm grateful to see you again tonight and just kind of walk through some real quick information so you can kind of see, you know, this is really a serious situation. And we want to continue to be wonderful partners with the community while still serving our student needs. And that is a real tough balance right now as well, too. So before I get into this, is there any questions?
Keep moving.
Okay, all right, so we'll keep doing that. So very quickly here, can everybody read that? I'm sorry, the print's kind of small, but we went through painstakingly and went through the labor costs, the pool maintenance, which also has permits, certifications. We have, you know, we've been following whatever county directions that we have to follow for the annual or daily testing and different things like that. We also looked at our utilities. That is an estimate because we don't have actual meters, but we've tried to look at this trending over the last few years as well. If you look at the monthly costs right there, and then what we looked at was what per biennium, because that's how we get our money from the state, right? Our funding. And then we looked at some cost reductions scenarios to help save costs. So we aren't just saying, well, this is what it is, right? Reduce pool operations to only 3 months per year. We were looking at that, close both the pool and dive well. We were looking at that and then close just the dive well. We actually, a few years ago, when we were doing the pool deck and a concrete wall, we were looking to close down just the dive well and possibly putting in bleachers. So we had an engineer that came in, gave us cost estimates for that. So we thought maybe we could elevate some more, you know, attention to the pool. Of course, none of that happened. And then we were trying to estimate, so if we have to drain the pool to do all this work, and I'll show you why we need to do that, that's about a cost of draining it and filling it a bit back up as well too. So if you would like, at www.evergreen.edu operations, this is what was communicated by the president. So what you just saw was operating expense. These are capital expenses here. I won't go through every line item unless you want me to, but you can read it right here. And you can go to that website as well too. So, you know, with the capital or the operating costs you see there, and here are some of the other things that are absolutely necessary. We have a large boiler plant, so it's not like it's just electric heat at the site. So it heats the entire campus, and we have steam that heats that pool. And the steam system's been failing. We have been replacing some valves and stuff like that, but there is much more work that needs to get done. I'm going to show you some of the piping, the control systems. It's really a 50-year-old pool, and we need to be able to get in there and do some of the work that's in there. So this is the first page of that memo that went out on May 1st from the president to our communities. And here's the rest of it right here. So this kind of talks a little bit about how this has been discussed long before I got to the school. So since 2014, they've been trying to come up with solutions to make this work, be able to address the capital needs as well too. So the work that we did on the wall wasn't even part of that 1.3 million, just to let you know. So, and the pool deck was required by, I don't think it's called the Department of Health in Thurston County, whatever that division is. They came out, looked at our pool deck and said, you got to get this taken care of. It was too slippery and worn down too much. So we had to put in a new pool deck. So as you can see there, we've shared with community groups, we want to keep the pool longer if the community partner can commit to covering the annual operating costs and a realistic plan for raising money for repairs and reimbursement or refurbishment, I'm sorry. So he kind of went through all this and he's communicated, and this is well documented. And all the meetings I have been in with President Dr. Carmichael, he has said the same thing over and over. So we don't want to have any confusion and do our best to stop any type of rumors that are out there. So the pool exterior. So this is where we had to get, if you can see the metal facade that was up there, some of the windows were almost caving in. I don't know. There has been some people that's, I think from here that's seen some of that. We had to do emergency repairs on that, and we pushed our contractors to get this work and the permits done to meet the requirements of all the community agreements that we had as well too. So we did that. This is the ceiling that's above our electrical switch room. It took out our ATS switch. We're trying to figure out what is the best way to address this, and then try to make sure that we don't have a major water leak that comes in or a falling of the ceiling. And this is over our switchgear room, and this is where the ATS switch failed. We have a tremendous amount of piping and valves, steam valves. This is one example right here. We need to be able to get in, shut down the steam, shut down the water, and be able to replace these so we have sustainable, safe operating conditions moving forward. We've gotten to the point where we don't even want our team members starting to go in there anymore. When I first got here, we spent close to $100,000 remediating asbestos and other things that were going on down in that space down there. From a safety standpoint, just so that our teams to be able to get into that space. So here's another one, the main supply line. We've been trying to get in there and to fix this. If that pipe gets rattled or something happens, that burst, that's going to take out the entire lower level of the CRC, our recreation center, and our switchgear and everything else. So back when this was built, they didn't put in a whole lot of isolation valves. So you see one on one side, but you don't see it on the other. So it's my understanding, based on the engineers and others that we brought in, we've got several types of these situations where we need to drain the pool and to be able to get in there and get this fixed. Our teams do not want to mess with something and have high pressure water coming in on top of them while they're doing this work. So those are just some of the things that we can show you there. There's more, but I wanted to kind of illustrate to you why we need to do what we need to do, and these costs are real.
Thank you for taking time to walk us through that. I want to move to Henry Volz and Joellen Wilhelm. Do you have any brief information you'd like to add to this?
Can I say one more thing? I sincerely apologize. For some reason here. Can I go back to the presentation?
Oh, sorry.
I apologize. So there is one more aspect. I don't know why it didn't come up on this. We can pass this around. So the ceiling. Okay, I'm sorry. I guess maybe I skipped it. I apologize. So the ceiling right there. So that's 10. That's basically like your average drop ceiling. So 3 years ago, when we did the emergency repairs, our architect came in and said, this is a very serious problem. So the grid, for whatever reason, I don't know if the HVAC systems weren't operating correctly or whatever for a long time, but all that grid, see how severely deteriorate that is? There's a concern that that's going to fall, and they gave us a 3-year time period, which we're coming up now to get it done. There was about a $270,000 repair estimate back in 2019. So that cost has escalated as well too. So as you can see here, we've got to address this, and the only way that we know how to address it is to drain the pool. We've got to get all kinds of lifts and everything else in there. And then we've also, they gave us a little bit of a pass on the lighting system. We found that the lighting system had some issues when it was installed in the past. So they had us augment to get the right illuminations into the pool by putting up some temporary LED lighting. So we need to go back in and address that as well too. So I just want to make sure that everybody, I don't know what happened. I may have stepped past it, but I wanted you to see this. And this is deteriorating around the perimeter. So they're concerned that if one part of that grid falls, we're going to have a major, and you don't want to have that in a space where there could be people that are falling into the water. So just want to share that as well. Sorry, Henry.
Thank you. And by way of transition, we heard testimony last week as a commission from advocates that they're working towards a pro forma or a way to try to figure out if this could operate sustainably. So we've invited 2 of those advocates back, and that's Henry Volz and Joellen. And online, we have Elizabeth Yen from Kings Aquatics. So why don't we start with you?
Yeah, and it'd actually be great to eventually lead to Elizabeth because she's got the second half of
Whatever you want.
And so first off, want to acknowledge all the work Tumwater and Olympia and Evergreen keeping a pool open so that we can keep swimming, and also acknowledge that it's been a community resource for 55 years. The last 8 years has been a rough 8 years at Evergreen for the aquatics facility, but it's also a facility where tens of thousands of people have learned to swim, and myself included. I learned how to swim in what we lovingly call lane 0, which it's the furthest lane. It's a facility that means a lot to a lot of people. We get a lot of input from the community. And in fact, we conducted a feasibility survey just in the last few weeks. Well, hold on, let me double check the date. In the last 7 days, I've gotten 236 responses that say that if Evergreen Pool had increased programming, swim lessons, open swim, swim club, water aerobics, water polo, do you believe you would use the pool more often than you currently do, and we get 89.7% yes and 10.3% no. And so we see a lot of opportunity for growth and a lot of Evergreen students, staff, but most importantly, community members that are interested in using the facility. We've talked to the Olympia School District, we've talked to the Tumwater School District, and they said that Evergreen is their preferred site. And it does make sense because Evergreen is a substantially better facility than the other two facilities that are available to the district put together. So it has an 11-lane facility versus River Ridge, which would be the facility that Tumwater School District's interested in using, that is a 6-lane facility that hasn't had significant upgrades to the pool deck, that hasn't had significant upgrades to the diving board, that is, to be honest, a much, much smaller facility just as far as its ability to serve the aquatics community. Less seating. River Ridge has seating for about 20 people. Evergreen State College, the seating, we regularly had 200+ people in the seating areas. And so we're reaching a lot of community groups. And in fact, just to give you an idea of the groups we have specifically reached out to, Port of Olympia, City of Olympia, City of Tumwater, the Washington State Senior Games has already committed funds to help with the repairs. Tumwater School District, Olympia School District, Thurston County, reaching out obviously to Evergreen State College, hoping to speak more extensively with Tumwater Parks, Olympia Parks. Olympia Orthopedics has already expressed interest in it, spoken to the community liaison at MultiCare. The Puyallup Tribe and Nisqually Tribe have spoken to them as well, and I'm intending to apply for grants there. We have a grant due in 10 days for the Washington State Department of Commerce. Really doing everything we can because we believe we have a plan that gets repairs done, that works with community groups and businesses like King Aquatics, and also shows a sustainable, and we have actually our really brief pro forma. We have a much longer one that I actually have emailed already out to a few people at this table that shows that it is not only a sustainable model, but something that allows for future improvements to the facility. Not just let's do the repairs, because let's do those repairs. Those are absolutely necessary, but let's build up this facility that has been the same for 20, 30, 40 years now. Yeah, go ahead.
So, I think the important nugget that needs to be shared is that we've worked with a bunch of stakeholders and we've come to a place where we have a path forward and we want to have people work together so we can get there. So, did you want to talk about Park and how we're on the pathway to nonprofit status so that we can work with the government agencies and the community, we can start collecting money, we can partner, we can go into contracts. So all those things. So those conversations obviously have to get ironed out with Evergreen, but Henry and I have been in the room with William and with the president and they want a partnership. So we're just trying to facilitate that amongst the stakeholders and the players. And I'm coming from this as a citizen and a community member. And I think with the plan that Henry knows because he's an aquatics person, is an underutilized space currently. And there's a lot of room for the community to be at Evergreen more than they have been in the past decade or 20 years. And there are community members, I've heard that you can't teach swim lessons at that pool. So that's a myth I want to dispel because swim lessons have been taught at that pool historically and are currently, were up until the shutdown announcement being taught. So it offers something that we don't have right now and we won't have, as we heard, for a little while. And so this group also can help work with the PFD when it comes to fruition to help promote swim in our community. So I don't know, I wanted to make sure that part of that was
Thank you.
said.
Yeah, and I also want to kind of dispel a notion, which is that pools lose millions of dollars a year. So just in Washington State, Wave Aquatics is a company that runs facilities at a profit, to be honest. La Jolla, California runs a facility there. I actually have their income statement right here. I'll share it with you. They ran at a profit of $17,000 this year. That is with $0 coming from any city. Not coming from the county, city, any government agency other than the school district paying normal rentals. Brown Deer, Wisconsin, their aquatics facility is running at it's a nonprofit, but running at such a positive margins that they've made $5 million in upgrades in the facility in the last 10 years. And so these are things that are capable, but it does require very, very dedicated aquatics groups. And that's what we in part want to bring to this discussion is the dedicated aquatics group that is really lacking a facility, but exists in Thurston County and exists in King County, which I think is the great lead into Elizabeth.
Jen, thank you so much for spending your evening with us. Would you like to introduce yourself and your group?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Yan. So together with our head coach, Alex Reed, and my husband, Terry, we formed King LLC. We do run King Aquatic Club. It's a swim club from September that operates from September to July. Currently, we have about 175 swimmers in our team. The role that we see coming into Evergreen Pool is that King would work with the community, like what Jolene had said, to develop swim programming, covering Learn to Swim, especially for the kids, and then promote water safety, and have also like a master's program for some of the seniors who want to be still continually active, and then and do this at a reasonable rate. But we would also like to bring a competitive youth swim team to the pool, and then we would contribute a fee based on the number of swimmers and lane space that are being used. So that's like the general participation or contribution that we can make. We can always get into more details, but we do need the support of the community. And I think from the last Port of Commission meeting we had, I know I heard from some people that, they were doing this and they were having lessons and they were contributing as teachers, as trainers. Those will be the kind of people that we would need to support and have the program running. And otherwise, most of the time, I think if you also look at it on the financial aspect of being able to, let's say, sustain, is if we have like the high schools having to come and rent the area on the pool, that would be a source of income. Swim teams like us renting the space as well, that is another source of income. And depending on the structure that we would be able to create together with the groups from Henry and Jolene, is that learning to swim, having swim programs, swim lessons, those are also contributing factors that would be able to hopefully sustain the pool and have and maintain its usage as time comes. So that's like the overall picture that where King comes in and the role that we were to play. If I'll just wait for more questions if there are any to get into more details.
Thank you. Because of limitations on time, I'm going to propose that anyone at the table has a chance to ask a clarifying question And I will start with Commissioner Krog on Solon. Just state who you're directing your question to. You have one.
Don't have anything. Thank
Mr.
you all
Marcolino?
for the information you've provided.
I guess I would just make a statement that my interest in this is, if this, the port, maintains critical infrastructure for the community, for the economy of the community, but also community facilities like Swan Town Marina that provides access to the waterfront. So if there is a way that this facility can be run, without public subsidy long-term, I want to know about it, and I want to see if that's a reality. Is the Port of Olympia in a position to help, bridge whatever gap there is to get us there?
So not a clarifying question.
No, not a clarifying
Statement of
question.
interest. Okay. Commissioner Toompas, do you have a clarifying question?
One thing I haven't heard anyone mention is, seems like the easiest solution is to ask for funding in Olympia next session. What is the likelihood of that? I might ask you, CEO of Evergreen. Are there any discussions with governor or state legislators, anything that actually might have investment in the future?
Would you like me to answer that?
Mr. Ward, yeah, and before you do, just to give you a kind of hand, I have seen over $100 million of capital in the 10-year capital facilities plan for Evergreen, of planned investments. And with that context, what would you like to share?
So thank you. Several years ago, we went and did get from the state legislator about $1 million is what we got. But we were also told at that time that because it is a fee-based facility, that was very tough to be able to procure or be able to get approved for the school. So we have been working very hard to see if there's other ways of raising, capital funding from that regard. I can't speak for everybody. We just had our CFO that just retired, somebody else coming in right now. I was part of some of the discussions with the Y several years ago. And unfortunately, we thought we had some type of solution, but they came and said it's not a community pool. So it would not work for them. So there has been discussions. We have tried over and over again. It doesn't mean that we won't go again in the future for additional, but the president, Dr. Carmichael, is the one that sets the priorities for the school with the board. And right now, I'm not sure exactly what that future holds for additional capital funding right there right now, but I can just say what I've been told and what I've heard as well too. So right now, he helps set the priorities based on what our students' needs are. Please understand that within the school internally, the usage by our internal community is single digit. So that is where the challenge comes from. I think the school has done a phenomenal job, as you've heard, is that we've been committed to our community members out there, trying to do everything we can to keep it operational. I've heard in other meetings, we probably have one of the most reliable, but we're getting at a very critical point right now where we've got to do these critical repairs. So.
Director Smith?
No questions, I think in front.
I'm going in order. Henry?
Well, I was hoping that, because they spent the afternoon to join us, PARC has, it's kind of some important input, or do you guys have anything that
Well, our commitment is to help to grow and sustain recreation, parks and arts in the community. So I know that we've actually talked, and so they're now underneath our fiscal umbrella. So to help them get started in becoming a nonprofit. Our hope is that, we like both of the facilities. Our hope is actually just to be able to support and go after funding for the community. And that's kind of where we can come in and definitely help go after, as a 501c3, we can go after funding that they are not able to otherwise. So
Joellen, do you have any clarifying questions for anyone?
I did have a clarifying question, but now I forget what it was because I was paying attention to that.
Elizabeth, did you have a clarifying question?
And no, not at the moment. Thank you.
No, I want to echo what Heather was saying. I think that the Park Foundation, as you may know, is uniquely qualified to bridge this. Well, I noticed that we were on the PFD list as one of the partners there. We have contracts existing with Olympia, Lacey, Tumwater, Tenino and Yelm. We have a proposed contract with the Port of Olympia, and we believe we will be back on contract with Thurston County. We have been, they had their budget crisis. We think we're back. We're working on that now. We were approached by one of the Thurston County Commissioners to engage in this discussion. At the same time, Heather was working out a contract over here for us to be able to share the resource and be able to give them their 501c3 status. And then, of course, we've done a lot of legislative lobbying for these things that cities really and governments can't really lobby for, but benefit the community in general. So we've got a lot of cross representation that we believe we can bring to the table. Look forward to ongoing conversations with the port. Love to come. I think we'd love to come and see the thing in person at some point, but yeah, that's what we're here for.
Thank you. Mr. Ward, do you have any clarifying questions for the advocates?
No, we've met already, and President Dr. Carmichael provided his direction on that. So if they can provide a pro forma and they can sit down and talk to us, you know, with both of the needs from an operating capital standpoint, he did say he would sit down and listen. So and consider. So that's where we're at.
Well,
I'm gonna make clarifying questions.
back to you, Commissioner Ansel.
Okay, so I was gonna ask a question of Evergreen because yes, it's expensive to do the capital investments to upgrade the pool, but it would also seem to me to be expensive to close down and convert that pool space to another use. And has there been any rough back of the envelope estimates as to how those two might compare?
I have not been made aware of those. This kind of came upon us with the recent budget reductions you've seen to the state and other things as well too. So we will probably be exploring that, but right now we're trying to address our immediate needs for the operational and capital costs. We were actually laying off people and we've already started negotiations. So this is very sensitive to us. So
That's people being laid off who are associated with the pool?
Absolutely.
Or also with more general through the
more general as well too. So the pool and others. So this is a very, and it's, as you can see, it's not just us, it's other higher education institutions as well. So this is a very difficult time for us.
Mr. Ward, I have two clarifying questions then. One, it seemed like you really wanted to make sure we understood that there's a need to do immediate maintenance because otherwise there's a risk to the whole facility. And it seemed like, I don't know if everyone here has the context, but you were dispelling a possible myth that shutting it down for immediate maintenance means it can never reopen again. That's what I was reading into it. Can you clarify, do you believe that shutting it down, it would ever be able to operate again? Or is it possible that things would start to just, once the pipes aren't full of water, it would fall apart and it's basically essentially deciding forever to close the pool?
So like I said, I've heard, not to me directly, but through others that are actually managing our athletics division, where they've been told, as I said earlier, if you drain the pools, the walls will cave in, they'll fall down the amphitheater, things won't restart. I had the same type of situation that came to me about our central utility plant, about our 1 million, we have two 1 million gallon reservoirs. They were concerned we'd never address the piping issues there. Our pump house all had to be fully renovated. We've spent, our electrical switchgear system all had to be upgraded as well too when I got there. So we've done major renovations across the entire campus. I come with over 30 years of maintenance. I've actually gotten a lot of support from OFM because we brought preventive maintenance back into and helped save millions of dollars. That's all recorded out there, and capital costs. So based on my opinion and what I've seen, because I don't think there's anybody else here that's had the direct contact I have with this pool, we have a high level of confidence that we will be able to bring it back up. And I've been asked to take it down in a way that we can preserve it to bring it back up. That was directed to me by President Dr. Carmichael. So we are studying that, looking at that. What we know for a fact right now is that we know power outages are common, even though we reduced a lot of them with our infrastructure upgrades. But We notice every time that we have a power outage, we've got valves, big valves in the area that need to be addressed because we lose water. We don't know if we're losing water right now, and I haven't been able to shut down the system to be able to see that. This is the only system on that 1,000-acre campus that we have that I have not been able to do that. And I'm just concerned. Our primary responsibility and our top priority is safety. And you've seen from these repairs here that we're very concerned about that. We've been concerned for years. And I actually went to the president years ago and said, we need to close this down to get this taken care of. But we had contracts in place. So me and my team have worked diligently to do what we can, keep those pools open as much as possible. But now with the financial situation on the operating side as well too, this has made it very difficult. Sooner or later, we were going to have to, as you can see, we have to address these needs.
And my second clarifying question actually came from the presentation of Paul Simmons. He mentioned that in 2021, when the feasibility study was being conducted by Olympia about a pool, that was when they had talked to Evergreen and had decided originally not to include competitive swim lanes because Evergreen's plan was to be providing the competitive swim opportunity regionally. What changed between 2021 and now?
The pandemic and other financial situations that we've had to address between that time. They were focusing on, they did bring in the why at that time to look and see if there was other things that we could do as well. My understanding is there was some other discussions. I was not part of those discussions. So they were trying to reinvent or bring in a swim team at that time, their own swim team. To reinstate that again. So there's been a lot of discussions about a lot of opportunities to reinvigorate the activity and attention to that pool. It's just been very difficult. So that's all I can say with that, but we have tried multiple ways to figure out how we could keep that pool going. But eventually we were going to have to shut it down to either do repairs or to cordon it off for safety reasons as well. I hope that helped in that regard.
Yeah, I think you said the pandemic and just that it was hard, I think.
Well, I don't run the athletics department, so I apologize for that. Yeah. But there was a lot of discussions. Like I said, they were looking at different options like the Y and other things to see what we could do to help raise revenue and bring more attention to the pool and activities. But every time something came up, it just didn't pan out. And during the pandemic, I asked to shut the pool down. And was denied that opportunity.
I can add a little. So there was staff that worked in the pool, and then also I think I had a conversation with President Carmichael at one point. Evergreen has always wanted to support the competitive aquatics, and they have a long history of that. And when we were doing aquatic ability study, looking at all the needs, one of the things we looked at was, is this area grown to the point where we actually need 2 pools versus 1, and do we spread them out geographically so that's easier to get to? And so at the time, I think Evergreen in good faith was trying to say, hey, we have a competitive pool that served this community for years. We can invest in that and keep that going. We want to continue to be that resource for the community. Now, I don't know many governments that haven't struggled with budget challenges over the past few years. And unfortunately, I also know that Evergreen was doing that on behalf of the community because they don't have a big swim program as part of their university services. And so they were doing that on behalf of the community, but unfortunately, I think the budget reality. I know at the time there was genuine hope to be able to serve that need. And that's why we designed the concept study the way we did. But so anyways, for whatever it's worth, that context, I remember those direct conversations. Their staff engaged actively in the study. It was James Reddick that participated from the Park Foundation. That's why your name was on the list. But the staff were actively engaged in that process from beginning to end, and we're very active partners. So that's where that comment comes from and that engagement. Just to give more context.
Thank you. Well, in closing today's work session, I just want to very much thank everyone who's participated civilly, in dialogue with each other about an important community resource but that also, where Evergreen is balancing a lot of demands on its future. It sounds like there are some potential paths forward. We've heard that you're working on a pro forma. I had not had a chance to see it in advance. I'm amazed if you have a plan that you could even raise the capital infrastructure dollars. You've brought already someone to the table, King Aquatics, who would be part of an anchor tenant sort of for the future of the pool. And you've heard clearly from Evergreen, we've all heard what the parameters are around being able to partner. Park Foundation is now at the table. Is there any other ask that you hear? Commissioner Hanson particularly wants to be there if there's an opportunity. Is there any final ask for us as a commission as we move forward?
I would just ask that we look at the PFD creatively. I think it's been thought of as like a one function pathway, but how it can roll into, like, this work can roll into that. And when I say that, I mean, like, showing the community that we're invested in aquatics, but also that we're creative thinkers and problem solvers. And like, I know that a lot of people have talked about this over the years, and maybe it feels like it's already been hashed out, but it seems like all the players are at the table now. And so if we can use this work together to go to the capital budget this next session and be like, we're different and we're fundable because we're on the pathway to a regional aquatic center, and this is part of it. This piece of Evergreen is part of it. So I just think kind of thinking a little differently about what the opportunity is.
And the other thing I would think that I would emphasize is that the most difficult part of having a pool is building it. And we have a building, we have a pool, we have a group that's already assembled and utilizing the pool or wants to utilize the pool. And we have 5 or 6 additional groups that have already contacted us about utilizing that specific pool already. And so I think that what we're looking for is how do we bridge from something we have to something in the long term that we might want without losing, 1, this opportunity, and 2, this facility. And so we're looking to figure out how to build those 2 bridges, both short term and then to the long term, because if we don't have a short term solution, we might not have a long term capability at all.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing your voice and your expertise of how the pool has been managed. It's great to see all the people who've come to this table, and thank you for being here at the Port of Olympia with us today. With that, I think it's time to adjourn the meeting. Let me see if I had anything else on our agenda. No, I don't. So thank you and good night.
Thank you.